Hello, guys. Welcome to another episode of Men Up, Men Down. So this one is a special one. It got me
Got you very excited, doesn't it,
yeah, got me
Volker?
very excited. Not only because so Jackson Hightower, based in Miami, he talked a lot about, if I say, erectile dysfunction and stuff, and or not even erectile dysfunction. It's not really the topic. It was all about sex, but it went deeper than just. It literally went a lot deeper than just the standard stuff. And he's a big advocate against porn. So we talked a lot about porn. He has his own shop where and I have to read that out, liquid gold, male self-pleasure oil. Doesn't ship to the UK yet, but I know we have a big listening. We have a big audience in the US as well. So check out his stuff. He knows what he's doing. Great Instagram. Yeah, lots of fun conversation, but very serious stuff. Yeah, David, what did you make of it?
Oh man, yeah, as well, as I just said, sort of off air. Yeah, we covered a lot of stuff that we've touched on. Sorry, so many innuendos.
I know.
But yeah, I guess we've talked about sex, we've talked about erectile dysfunction on the podcast before, but I guess not sort of at this level. And yeah, I mean, one of my questions was, what is the thing that men don't realize is having a major impact
Yeah.
on their ability to perform? And well, listen to the episode and you'll find out what it is. But it was quite an eye
Yeah.
opener.
And what I liked, I mean, being German, right? He said organize yourself because the female, if I say hormonal cycle, right? They're 4 cycles in a month. I think that's what he said. Um, so there's some nuggets in there for those who wanna step up, literally.
Well, anyway,
So
enjoy.
yeah, enjoy.
Welcome to the Man Up, Man Down podcast, presented by Volker Beluda and David Pawsey. We discuss the pressures and challenges faced by men approaching middle age that we're often too embarrassed to speak about with our friends. You can find us online at www.manupdown.com. Enjoy the show and don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review.
So welcome to another episode of Man Up, Man Down. We're continuing our US adventures, and today we're delighted to have on the podcast Jackson Hightower. Jackson is the dynamic CEO and founder of Natural Jackson, a trailblazing brand revolutionizing the way men approach health, vitality, and intimate wellness. With a rapidly growing community of over 1.1 million followers, half of those are men, half of those are women across social media, Jackson has emerged as one of the world's fastest growing male health influencers, empowering men to take charge of their health for practical, natural, and sustainable solutions. So thanks very much for joining us, Jackson. I mean, I guess sort of my first question was, well, how did you get into men's health?
Well, I've been an athlete my whole life. I
Right.
started, doing sports and martial arts at a very young age, and then, slowly kind of was, an athlete in high school and played college sports and whatnot. Um, so health and wellness has always been really important to me. I had an amazing coach when I was in high school. Actually, he was a French guy. I grew up in the Boston area, and he was my goalie coach. And he was the first person that really started teaching me about, what you're putting in your body and why it's important. The choices that you're making, how to make natural ingredients for different things. And so he was like a 55-year-old guy at the time in incredible shape, just ripping pull-ups and this and that. And he was really inspiring to me. So I've always been interested in health as an athlete, wanting to be, look fit and feel good, obviously, and be able to perform at the highest levels. So that's really kind of where it started, was when I was younger. I had the foresight, probably very unknowingly, just to, like, when I was in my teens, to stop drinking soda and stop having fast food, which not a lot of people had the luxury of being able to do for various reasons. But that was just my path. So it's always been this compounding interest, I think, since I was quite young, of health and wellness and longevity, and it has those effects. Just like as you invest small amounts over time, right, you get larger returns on the back end.
So I mean, was that coach kind of an exception to the rule, or is kind of the nutritional aspect kind of? I mean, I know that look, college sports in the US is a very different kettle of fish. Like in the UK, it is a much higher level. But yeah, so and I played sports. Certainly wasn't like a celebrated athlete or anything, but I don't really sort of remember that really coming in into the equation. Do training and stuff.
It was rare.
Really.
It was definitely rare, and this was high school. And so college, obviously, it's a bit different. You're recruited, you're an athlete, you're part of a program, they have strength coaches. High school, it was rare. So I think of that as quite a lucky break I probably got, right? Of being introduced to someone who opened my eyes and just basically refreshed my perspective. And they said, reframed it in a bit of way. And it's like, oh, okay, interesting. Maybe you shouldn't be drinking sodas with just so much sugar in it and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it was quite, I think it was probably more rare. And this was obviously back in the early, 2000s, so I'm 41. And so this was probably 1999, 2000, those years. And I think that we were much less, this is before social media, before Facebook, much less conscious of that sort of thing, especially at the educational level in schools.
So you do a lot of. I mean, I've been on your Instagram feed for the last half an hour.
Oh, you went down a rabbit hole.
Yeah, literally a rabbit hole. So there's a lot around sexual health as well on there, right? There was one I just what caught my eye there. One was, can you actually grow your aubergine? And the other one was exercise to be better in bed, which like stomach exercise. So how
Mhm.
did you get into that? I mean, that's, if I say it's a niche, it's
Yeah,
literally.
it's a tight niche.
Or as you do say in the States, you say niche, don't you? So it's
Right, right. So, it's interesting, like, being an athlete and growing up, I always had trainers, coaches, masters that I was training with, right? So I just to give you a bit of background, I started taking martial arts taekwondo when I was 4, and I did it for about 3 to 3.5 hours a day for about 4.5 years, and I became a black belt when I was 7.5. So you have to think about it like, who is the person that's going to like, who's this person, right? Like, what is their growing up style like, right? It was very regimented, it's very programmatic, but I learned from teachers and I learned from masters. Now, fast forward into college, and you're freshman, whatever, playing sports, trying to fit in, meeting girls, being outside of home for the first time, kind of like connecting in that way, and I had always been used to being very good at things that I did because I worked hard and I studied and I practiced. And I got some really interesting feedback the first couple of years of college that was not the case. So when it came to the bedroom, which is probably not too dissimilar from every single guy on the planet. But what I did was I sort of I sort of took the note, and as you're a kid in school, it's like you deal with a lot of this stuff. You're nervous, you have performance anxiety. Am I big enough? Do I know what I'm doing? Do I know how to please her? How do I navigate her body? These are all questions that none of us really are ever taught. And that we're supposed to just sort of like go in and learn, like you're kind of blindfolded walking through a room that's dark. So it's like double, it's like where's the light? Where's the source? Where's the hope? Um, and I recognized at that point that, yeah, you're right, I did know what I was doing, and that didn't feel good, and I didn't want to feel that way again. And so, as I graduated college and went off into the world and started, working in entrepreneurship and running companies, et cetera, I took it upon myself to never have that happen again. And so I basically found this book, The Way of the Superior Man, which I'm sure maybe you guys have heard of, by David Data. And it was one of the most seminal books for me in my journey of understanding male-female dynamics, relationship dynamics, polarity, the foundation that a man should have when he comes into the relationship. And then he also talks a lot about the sexual and the erotic arts, right? Of like, how do you maintain your energy and your power? How do you retain your seed and not release, as often? So it was my first entree into, wow, this is a person that can teach me this stuff, right? And again, this is still very early social media days. So like this information isn't readily available in a lot of places still at this point. Um, And so I began on my personal time, I began diving in, books, courses, programs, videos, and everyone that he recommended, I read their stuff and I went to their so I ended up training with a number of different masters across Tantra, across Taoism, which is the Chinese sort of philosophy of living, and then a bunch of other, things. And so over the last 15 years or so, while I'm running businesses and doing other things on the side, I was cultivating this type of knowledge, right? So I have a unique background of martial arts, erotic arts, sports, physical fitness, health and wellness. I've done a tremendous amount of personal development and personal growth over the last 20 years, to sort of just keep always elevating, right? I have I have a growth mindset. I will do anything if it means I'm growing and maturing and developing. And so the universe kind of has its interesting ways of letting you know that it's time to switch gears. And so when I was 38, about 3 years ago, I, you know, it, for whatever reason, the universe kept putting things in front of me that said, like, you should be teaching some of this stuff that you've learned to men. And, here we are, you know, and it's been a very um, beautiful journey, and it's an important field. I think it's actually the most important field that is out there, that is still the most repressed and suppressed by institutions, as well as corporations, as well as just the way that we communicate socially, you know?
Sorry, just
Are you
going
guys
back.
hearing this, by the way? I'm sorry.
That's all right. Yeah, I mean, I can hear. It sounds like someone's mowing the lawn, or
Someone's cutting down the trees outside of my apartment.
The hatch, I think.
But yeah, no, that's all right. We've struggled through
Okay.
worse. Um, so sort of just going back to the taekwondo.
Yeah, we're
I mean, sort of, did you grow up in a like? Well, was your family very much kind of activity orientated and well and dedicated?
Well, I would say I was an only child. My parents wanted me to like do activities, and I was obviously pretty precocious at sports and things with physical kinesthetic, intelligence, and so I had coordination, and so they kind of fostered that within me. Um, but my dad was an athlete, my mom wasn't really, but it was more just like, oh, he's good at this and he likes it, so let's make sure that we provide an opportunity for you to do this. So I played soccer, baseball, and martial arts. Those are the three things.
But I mean, like, so that training sort of mindset was part of your makeup from well from birth.
Yeah, I think that some people have that as part of their makeup, and some people can learn it. I've always been really disciplined, always.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of I just sort of think about neither my mum or my dad were like I know my dad used to play football, but like when he was at school. Whereas, I've sort of done triathlons and endurance events and, and I sort of think, oh, well, it's, yeah, I don't know. I guess I get a bit of pride that my children kind of see this as like it's just something that you do. It's kind of normal to run 50 miles, um, which I'm like, yeah, So yeah, I mean, it's
Set an example, right? Like you're showing them one way of being, right? That's like this is what we do, right? In this household, and I think that's important is setting a good example, in terms of being disciplined. Like my father was a very disciplined, like going to work, setting the table, providing for us, making sure everything is dialed in that way. Like there's always little things that you see from your parents, right? And whether it's subconscious or conscious, because when you're a kid, you don't really think about that stuff, you know?
Mm.
But that was just the way of life that I had. It was like, yeah, after school we went to here, we did this, and then we went home and we did this, and so it was very regimented. I had a very regimented, not military, but probably as close as you could get.
yeah.
So you're bringing all that to sex life then as well, no?
Well, kind of, right? So it's like, how do you learn anything? How do you teach anything, right? There's like a beginning, there's an intermediate, and there's advanced levels. And one of the, I mean, what I try to share is that like sexual health is health. They're,
Yeah.
they're not really that different. You know what I mean? Like if you're not getting your markers tested and your and your blood done and your testosterone and free testosterone, and you don't know this sort of stuff, which by the way, the vast majority of men do not know anything about their blood markers,
Mm.
right? Like I could ask you guys, like, have you had them tested recently?
Yes,
We have.
Because you guys are interviewing people who are you're probably like, oh shit. But before you started this podcast, you might have said, no, I haven't.
I mean,
Right.
probably before we recorded this series of the podcast, it's sort of, yeah, it's something that we've been finding out a lot about over the last few months. And yeah, it is all very new information. And it is all like, wow, why isn't this stuff like more widely known?
It's interesting because when you really get into the weeds on it, at least I don't know how it works in the UK, but in the United States, it's all related to insurance companies. So if you don't come in with like very specific symptoms and I'm not getting morning wood and I'm lethargic and I'm this and I'm that, they don't actually test for this stuff if you go to a normal general practitioner because of the insurance and it costs more money and you got to do all this and you got to find all the codes that are associated with all the symptoms. It's a bit of bollocks, to use a word that you guys might be familiar with. Uh,
It's proper bollocks.
yeah, which is why we use sort of functional medicine doctors who are like, yeah, of course we're going to get your markers tested, even if you're 25 years old, because we want a baseline. We want a baseline for where you are. But I bring all of this knowledge that I've learned, right? So and when I do coaching with my clients, which is more one to one, I'm like, look, like I can teach you moves and things, but like the conversation is much bigger. Usually, the conversation is more health. It's mind, body, spirit. It's all of the above, right? That we get into when we have these conversations because your sexual health is your health, right? It's the way that you think about your experience with your partner. It's the way that you're connected to yourself, right? So if a lot of guys want to start at third base and the reality is like, why don't we start at home plate and like let's figure out where you're at. Like where's your body feeling right now, right? How connected are you? Are you addicted to porn? Are you releasing your energy like and ejaculating way too often? Like that's where we start and we build the foundation from there. So yes, the answer is I absolutely do bring that sort of methodical approach to sexual health because it doesn't just start at like, how do I use my finger better in this position? Like, yes, of course, it's important, but the conversation really begins much, much, much earlier than that. If that makes sense.
Can I ask a stupid question, a personal question, maybe? I just have to ask it because it's in my head. So I don't know. Are you married?
No,
Or
I'm not
or
married. I would like to be married at some point.
so I assume you had girlfriends in high school, right? If they see you now, what do they think? Do they go like, "Oh, I always thought, he's gonna be, you know, like a sex doctor," or do they
No.
go like, "Oh Jesus, what is he talking about? He was awful."
I think I think what's interesting is as you go through, I lost my virginity when I was 17 years old. I'm 41 years old now, so that's a lot of years of being sexually active. Um, and I think about that a lot, and it's like I haven't always been talented, right? And so people in the past, who may have had experiences with me, like, yeah, like you mess up, you're not that good, you're fumbling around, you're stumbling around, and you know what? It's okay, and you embrace it, right? Because as you move into your career and your path of mastery, at the beginning, it's a lot of stumbling blocks, right? So I would say that, yeah, like in my early days, probably not that impressive, and then as you get further and further along, you get better and better and better, and you have better experiences overall, right? And it's not about how good I am now, because that's not really my gauge. My gauge is like, am I really enjoying this experience and connecting with this person, right?
Yeah.
And creating a really amazing, beautiful container, right? So I'm single right now, but I'm obviously like, I've had serious relationships and partners in the past. And so you're always just consistently trying to learn about your partner and understand what they're interested in and how to connect with them more deeply. And it's less about you, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I was gonna say, that it isn't a, if you pardon the pun, one size fits all. But, obviously different people get aroused by different things, and, what works for, might work with my woman on a Tuesday night might not work with my Wednesday night woman.
A
But,
thousand percent, 1,000%, and that's also the education of that, provide with younger guys or any of the men is just like, you have to remember your partner is not like you. her body works very differently. She has 4 very distinct hormonal cycles throughout every month. And if you don't understand that, right, if you just think that the woman is like you, then you're not going to act accordingly and you're not going to act appropriately, right? Luteal, menstrual, follicular, ovulatory. Those are 3 very distinct phases that a woman is going through. And she has to eat different, act different, work out different, have sex different, needs different types of foreplay. So there's a lot of education that men are not aware of because we tend to think that like, well, the women are kind of like us. They get turned on the same way that we get turned on. We can just look at something and we're like ready to go. That's not how women operate. So yeah, there's a lot of adapting and adjusting, right? And really listening and paying attention and leveling up our own internal awareness of how women operate differently, right? They're women and men are very different. Very different hormonally, sexually, what motivates us and inspires us. So like that's really a critical factor here is that education, we never have that education. Kids are never educated in that way. Adults are never educated in that way. So my platform, like if you had to ask me what it is that I'm doing, it's literally like sex education that you never had, you know? And it spans the whole gamut.
Hello folks, it's Volker here. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. As you know, I coach executives, whether that is for leadership skills, or sales leadership skills, or working as a therapist too. There are few ways I can help you to get unstuck, improve your work-life balance, or become a better version of yourself. So you will be more productive and have more time for your family. Whatever it is, you can join my client list of people from General Electric, Pepsi, DHL, Boots, and many others. Book a free exploratory call via my website www.obnat.us. That's obnat.us. Now back to the show.
So what's your top? I mean, I must ask, right? What's your top tip for someone been married for a few years now, and what can I do, or what can anybody do at my age to spice things up, to make things
Yeah.
better?
Well, the first off I'd say is like, look, as you get more deeper and deeper into a partnership, right, complacency kind of happens, and so it takes more effort and more work in order to continue to create polarity, right? You have to really identify what are her love languages and really continue to focus on those regularly. What is her erotic blueprint, right? What kind of lover is she? What does she get really turned on by? And taking that into account, it's understanding where she's at in her cycle on a month-to-month basis, putting it in your calendar, getting on her app so that you're tuned in, right? It's about creating you know, I use this, so it's like when you're with someone, like you use a iMessage, well in the States, so we use iMessage for just like logistical conversation, like administrative shit about your kids and whatnot, which is not sexy. And then you have a different channel of communication on WhatsApp, perhaps, or a Signal or Telegram, where you get spicy, and that is reserved exclusively for your spicy conversation, so that when she knows when she looks at that, she's in that kind of mindset, right? Because you don't want to like put the two together, right? So there's a lot of things that you can do, but it takes effort, and it takes work. Um, and paying attention and, and understanding where her stressors are, we as men, we have to put in the work and really pay attention and, continue to cultivate those deep partnerships, um, and create more polarity wherever we can, trying expanding outside the envelope of what your normal sex life is like. Maybe there's role play, maybe there's, different scenarios that you get into, whatever it is that, kind of continuing to push that so that there's some novelty.
What advice would you give the woman?
About how to stay connected with her man. I would say, number one is you have to remain open, right, to to being sexually active, right, and to show compassion and kindness and understanding to the male partner. I think that we sometimes, women get in situations where it's like they shut down easily, or they're frustrated because the man's not putting in the work, and then she gets dry and doesn't get turned on, and then there's this whole, back and forth. Um, and sometimes women can withhold. They withhold it because they're pissed off and they want to prove a point. And I would always say, like, come with like open heart as much as humanly possible, right? As long as the man, if you can see he's putting in effort and work, you got to be open for him, you know? Um, and also, you know, it never hurts to initiate every now and then as a woman, especially if being in a partnership for a long time. It's not always you don't always have to have sex. There's other things that you can do that, a man would be, would enjoy, right? The other parts of your body, etc. I'm sure we can figure out what those are, but like sometimes that's really nice. And sometimes that's what the man needs. And so there is this back and forth kind of like symbiotic thing where yeah, we want to initiate as men a lot, but like sometimes like it's great when a woman's like, you know what, I'm gonna take care of you, right? And you have that, and so as long as it's not totally like one-sided,
Yeah.
I mean, sort of something that we've discussed before, is, at a certain stage of life, especially if you've got kids, etc. Um, you can sort of, pass like ships in the night, for, I guess is the classic phrase.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how, and obviously communication is like a huge part, of, well, invigorating your sex life. I mean, what sort of advice do you have if, those intimate opportunities are very limited, but at the same time, as you say, you sort of, you need to lay the groundwork, so to speak.
Yeah.
So, how do you, I mean, is it a case of sort of booking in time, or?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you have to set date nights, I think that's really important. And again, you know, if there's ever communication issues in the partnership, I mean, I would say like it's usually doomed, right? Like people need to communicate. And you need to have those breaking rapport, breaking the fourth wall conversations where we're like, okay, where are we at right now? What's going on? Another thing I usually tell women is that, especially if they're working women, right? And that happens more and more, is that if they're in there as kind of their masculine energy during the day, what are you doing at the end of the day to like shake it off, right? To shake off that like analytical brain kind of oriented mindset and get more in your body. Whether that's, doing like even like something as simple as like taking a bath, right? And something that's gonna make a woman feel sexy, right? Hot water, whatever it is, listening to really sexy music, dancing by herself in front of the mirror or just by herself, whatever that is, moving her body in like some sort of, sensual way. Like anything that's gonna get her more into her felt sense as opposed to her brain is gonna be really impactful for her and her ability to connect with her male partner in a way that is in where she's in her feminine, you know? And so like this is and again, it's much easier said than done, guys. This is not some easy thing because you have kids and you got people yelling and throwing and cooking food and all this. I mean, it's wacky. I get it. Um,
When you sort of, you say we have date night, then there's added pressure because it's almost like, right, this is the one opportunity. And, and it's like, well, actually, you might be like, actually, I really can't be bothered tonight.
yeah, and you know what? And maybe, you know, you can't be bothered, but like what if you still made the commitment, and maybe it's like a massage, or maybe you just connect with each other and you watch a show or you go on a walk or like something that just maintains that level of connectivity. You don't have to have sex if you're both super tired and whatnot. But making those efforts and also understanding like sometimes it's not like at night. Sometimes it's in the morning when both of you have energy and you put it to get the kids to school and you take off a couple hours in the morning. Those types of things where it's like we got to be more creative, right? Or it's a staycation, or it's you give the kids to the in-laws and it's like for a day on the weekend. It's like we're just going to be with each other, and without that pressure of like, oh my god, we have to have sex, but like let's just actually just really enjoy our time together, right? Doing whatever it is that we want to do together. I also find that, and I don't know if what you guys thoughts on this, but like I think sometimes we lose the art of kissing. I find that like kissing is a really great way to reconnect with your partner and light up a little bit of that sexual energy. Physical touch for me, I mean, I know my love language is like physical touch is big, like I always have my hands on my partner, massaging, touching in the kitchen when you're behind them, like just that level of touch, is important. And then, kissing, like when was the last time you just kissed for like 20 minutes? Nothing else, you know? So just creating a bit of turn on in different scenarios that can allow you both to just be settled in with each other, right? And like calm the nervous system and get out of that fight or flight, that response.
Interesting. Taking notes here.
We've got a recording, so but good. I like it.
No, it's I guess, and David alluded to that, right? As you get to midlife, if you have a steady relationship, you have kids, a dog. We both have dogs, and there's always something happening, right? And the love life or the date nights, just don't happen, and quite frankly, I have a reminder in my diary to remind myself to organize something, right? Just because you need to organize it.
Yeah, when are you
Um,
taking me out now?
yeah, I haven't told Jen yet. But I read that somewhere the other day. I saw something. I probably saw it on Instagram, to be honest. But rather than having sex, or planning sex after your date night, right? So you go out, I don't know, you eat steak, you have a bottle of wine, you come home, you're totally drunk, and you're like, oh, do we really still need to have sex, kind of thing? Just have it before, right? Get it done.
And over time.
100%, right? Because like after you eat a bunch of food, your digestive system is taking up all of your energy, all of your blood flow as a man. You're 100% right. To have sex before you go out, right? Before you drink the alcohol, before you do this, if that's works for you, that's perfect,
You just have
But yeah,
more energy, right?
way more energy. People underestimate how much energy the digestive system takes. You get a big steak, right? And also blood flow. The other thing that's important too, I think, is like it's not just the men getting their levels tested; it's also the women getting their levels tested because women's hormones change. And if you're a guy in your mid 40s or whatever it is, or 50s, and you have low testosterone, you're going to have low libido, and you're not going to want to be with your partner. But if you start working on your testosterone in some way or whatever it is that you need in order to raise it, depending on what level of stage of life you're at, that's going to help your libido. Your testosterone is directly correlated to like how engaged you are and how ready you are and how much drive you have. Similarly, a lot of women have low libido because their hormones are off, but not a lot of women go and check their hormones. It's more of like a male thing. Oh, male's low T. Well, women can also have low T, and their estrogen can be, in progesterone. So it's really it's a team effort, if you know what I mean.
David, go
I mean,
ahead.
yeah, I mean, slight change of tact.
Oh dear.
I mean, well, I mean, we sort of talked about alcohol there, and obviously, is a very common trope that too much booze affects your ability to perform. I mean, what are there? I mean, what would you say are the things that men are like? Wow, I didn't realize that would have an effect, or have such an effect. Whether that's not exercising, or something they're eating or drinking, or a lifestyle thing that they're doing that you're like, actually, yeah, that is something you really need to watch for.
I got your answer for you. Consumption of porn. That's the number one.
Okay. Right.
That's the number one. And I mean, it's, I study it. I understand it. I have thousands of guys in my DMs every week telling me that they're addicted at a variety of ages, teenagers to 65, 70-year-olds. So that is the single worst thing that has ever happened to men because it affects their physiology, it affects their psychology, it creates performance anxiety, performance-induced erectile dysfunction, premature ejaculation, mental issues, depression, social isolation. I mean, it's nasty, nasty. So first thing I ever do when I work with someone one-on-one, or any of the guys that reach out to me, for any kind of help or support, is like, are you watching porn? If so, how much? And when can you stop? That's the single biggest driver.
The problem with porn is we have access to it 24/7 these days, right? When I grew up, not that I ever looked at porn, of course. We had these magazines, right? And hand me down sticky, hiding underneath the bed, right?
Yep.
Those were the
Yeah.
days. And the centerfold, and anyway,
We get the idea.
but these days it's like YouPorn, who knows, right? They're probably more sites than that's not that I know any of those. It's there's a choice, and it's on demand, and there's no, if I say I don't know if my kids, they probably know as well, right? I mean, it's such an easy way to find it. How do we stop that?
Well, the first is education, and letting them know that, like, what it does to them, because most guys don't know. Then another part of that is there are websites that you can use as a family that will block certain sites, right? I have a bunch of different websites that I can send you guys afterwards, even, which is like, hey, you put this on your phone and your computer, and it's blocking all these sites on your phones and your computers, iPads, whatever it may be. But yes, it's more readily available. The danger that people don't understand is, so when you were looking at that static image, it's just a static image, right, of a naked lady, right?
Yeah.
You had to use your brain to create some sort of situation that would turn you on when you're self-pleasuring, right?
Yeah.
So I actually have this chart, but there's an inverse correlation between the amount of neural demand, right? The amount of brain demand that you need when you're looking at something, and the level of dopamine that it spikes, right? And so I'll explain it very simply. Porn, video hardcore porn, requires no brain demand, 0, but yet it spikes our dopamine the highest. Okay, so that's like the highest level, is like hardcore porn that you're watching, right? Fast, quick, like do. Okay, 0 brain demand, because it's giving you everything, right? And it's spiking your dopamine way, way, way higher than it normally should go. On the corollary, the absolute opposite of that is your imagination, right? You're in your brain. You need the highest level of brain demand to create the imagery and the situation that's going to turn you on, right? And your level of dopamine that it creates can be high, but it's not going to be anywhere near as high as what happens when you watch porn, right? So let's say when you watch hardcore porn, let's say the dopamine goes to a level 100, right? And let's say when you're in your brain, the dopamine goes to a level 10, right? When you're with a partner, let's just say you and your partner, your dopamine can get to like a 50. But if you've been habituated to that porn, the dopamine from porn, which is at 100, you're only getting to 50 when you're with your partner. And so your body says, this isn't that attractive to me, and I'm not going to get turned on, and so I can't get an erection, right? Because 50 and 100 there's a significant delta. But if you've stimulated you using your mind, right, and the dopamine goes to level 10, right? And then when you're with a partner, it's a 50. When you're with a partner, it's going to be, your body's going to function like it's turned on, right? It's not going to say, well, this isn't enough, right? Because what's happening right now, and this is important for the men and their children, is like, you have kids, is like, it's called porn-induced erectile dysfunction. So guys who are 16, 17, 18, 20, 30 years old, who are not supposed to have ED, they are having ED because of the psychological issues that are happening, because their dopamine has been habituated to getting to that 100 every time. And then when they're with a partner, it doesn't get that high, because the experience with the partner is never going to be like what they're watching at porn. So that's a very, very, very important conversation that you and your wife need to have about how do we, as it relates to your kids, right? Obviously, if men are watching porn and they're not, engaging with their wife, it's going to affect them as well, and they're going to be less interested in engaging, right? So I say, I have a 0 porn tolerance, like 0 porn policy. Like, it's never done anything really good, if you ask me. So that's essentially how it works. So the lower the brain demand and the higher the dopamine, the worse the experience is going to be for you in your life, right? Which is what hardcore porn does. And the guys who make porn, they know exactly what they're doing.
Oh, yeah.
So that's an important piece. So if you had to say what's the most important thing that men need to know about is to stop watching porn because it's ruining them.
I mean, that's completely blown my mind. Like I've heard, sort of various kind of statistics / anecdotes about the impact porn can have, but I've never sort of heard it described like that. And as you say, it's like, well, if this is kind of what you're being exposed to several years before your first sexual experience, yeah, it's that's terrifying.
You have
Yeah.
different expectations, right?
Mm.
Basically.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
so that like really is the, you know, the cornerstone of all of the work that I do is like, if you stop watching porn, you're going to be in a hell of a lot better place than if you didn't.
Yeah.
And then, of course, like drinking alcohol doesn't help, right? And exercising is obviously great. We know that cardiovascular strength, health is important. But that's the biggest one. It's this digital aspect. So it's porn, it's OnlyFans culture, and it's like digital dating, right? Because
Yeah.
what's happening is men are being satiated by this digital arousal and digital desire, and they're losing the ability to go out in the world and engage with people in a real way, right? Both sexually, but like dating and risk and rejection and things like that. So those are the things that I really, I study a lot and I focus on a lot and I work on a lot with my social media following and customers and obviously the one-on-one clients.
I mean, yeah, you sort of touched on something else there, which, well, about the whole sort of digital dating culture. And like something that I heard on another podcast was how, it's almost like, to put it coarsely, if you go down to a bar with your friends, you've got your attractive mates that are kind of pulling in some women. And basically you kind of get the cast-offs. As I say, it's a very coarse way of saying it. Whereas with digital culture, you know, basically you've got women that are you've got guys that are being swiped past. I think, it's sort of like 20% of men on dating apps get 80% of the dates.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, yeah, and I guess, yeah, forget sort of what a life skill, one that I never really mastered, but going up and chatting to a woman, in a bar, because it's, yeah, you've got to employ a lot of skills. And yeah, I can sort of see again, that sort of a behavior or, that we've had for millennia slowly being eroded by, a brand new invention.
Yeah. And it's causing a massive, massive, massive shift in our culture and society. The ability to risk rejection,
Mm.
right? And to have the balls
Yeah.
to go up and say, yeah, grit and resilience. And now we're hiding behind phones. And, there's some ridiculous statistics like the percentage of women that haven't been approached in the last year in real life, right? Or like men are 14 times more likely to swipe on dating apps, but only, result in 2% of they're only resulting in like 2% of the dates. I mean, there's some ridiculous stats out there. But yeah, I mean, that stuff is important, and understanding that rejection is part of life and
Mm.
it's going to make you stronger, you know? I mean, anyone who's built a business or been in a sales role, it's like, usually
Yeah.
you get rejected a lot or been an athlete, like you fail all the time, you know? And it's okay and it's life. But, yeah, it's a fascinating one, that I'm really starting to uncover now.
So how, I mean, sorry, I'll just ask one more question, then let you get in, Volker.
To be honest, I'm looking at the time. We probably have to wrap up soon as well. So.
Yeah. I mean, so, because obviously this is a sort of relatively new phenomenon, but I mean, sort of how much data or, how have we been kind of finding out about this stuff?
How do I find out about it?
Well, I mean, society, it's sort of, how do you gauge, how engaged an adolescent was with the, opposite sex pre.
Well, I think what happens is we we essentially release technology, and then it runs for a couple of years, and then we have like this revisionist, like, okay, well, what's going on? How are things shifting and how are things changing? And so, you don't learn about these things really fully until many years later, but you can see the trends. You can see the trends. And if men are being satiated with this pay to play digital culture where they can go on and watch porn and ejaculate and get a release, if they can go on an OnlyFans and watch a woman doing whatever and get a release, well, what motivation do they have to then potentially go into the real world where they can get rejected and then like but like try to have a life, to build a life, right? That takes risk. And so the more complacent, the more satiated. So let me explain something too. So when a man is arousing himself, right? There are hormones that are at play. So dopamine is going up, 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 right? And dopamine is like the reward pathway. But when he releases, a hormone called prolactin is released. Now, prolactin, you may have heard, is like what women who are breastfeeding, they release prolactin to the children, and the children get satiated and tired and relaxed. Well, we as men know that when we release, we tend to get tired and relaxed and satiated, and we don't really want to go again. When we were younger, the refractory period was a lot shorter, and as we get older, it gets longer and longer, right? But if you think about how easy it is for young men or older men to get satisfaction and this prolactin satiated release from porn, from OnlyFans, from whatever it is, that's making them more satiated and more satiated and more satiated, and I'm content with where I'm at. Your libido goes down. That's the role of prolactin, is to kill your libido. So then why would I want to go out in the world and try to meet someone in person that takes risk? Right? And it's like I might get rejected, and my friends might say that I'm a loser, or whatever it is, right? Whatever happens. So like you have to think about that and how easy it is to just pay to play versus going out and saying, okay, I'm going to try. I'm going to like establish a real connection with a real person. So this is where we're headed. And like, I'm like anti-porn, anti-dating apps, anti-pharmaceuticals. Like I'm anti all this shit. I'm like a salmon swimming upstream here, right? Because the world is just like easy button, take a
Yeah.
pill,
Yeah.
take a pharma, watch porn. I'm like, no, like don't, like, so
Because it's essentially what you're saying. We're just there for the quick fix, right? We come and then go to sleep, basically.
yeah, quick fix
And
culture.
yeah.
Yeah.
Jackson, this was super interesting. We unfortunately come to the end of the session. There was something I would have asked. If I say shameless plug, you can obviously tell us about it in a minute, right? You have your own supplements as well, right? And I've been, whilst we're talking, I have had a look at your website. So there's a lot of stuff on there. So I know I don't think you ship to the UK yet. So otherwise, but obviously
Yeah.
we have lots of listeners globally as well. So just to wrap up, where can people find out more about you? Get in touch. What's and what do you do on the nutritional side as well?
Yeah. So there's two parts of my business. The first is supplements, and you can find those on getnaturaljackson.com. And there we do ship in the UK, but you have to like go through one of those intermediary shippers in the United States. So it's
Okay.
possible we do ship it all the way. They're basically all natural, non-pharmaceutical herbal supplements for men, for libido, arousal, things like that. Kind of like herbal Viagra and herbal Cialis. And then I have a number of other products for male vitality. And the second way, which is probably better for your global audience, is I'm launching an app on the App Store soon. And that's going to be a lot of games and coaching and programs to help men with sort of quitting porn and Kegels training and lasting longer. And then all of my courses and programs, sexual position, sexual fitness, things like that. So that's all going to be launched in the App Store. And the best way to get in touch with that is actually to join the email list on the website. So if you join the email list, you'll be automatically added to that list. And then, so if you go to getnaturaljackson.com, and then go to the bottom, you can add your email and we'll send you a notification when that's ready. And that's going to be something that's very, it's sort of like mass, like I want everyone in the world to like play these games, get more sexually fit, quit porn, all that sort of stuff. And that's the subscription model. And then the courses will be more one-off add-ons.
Awesome.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah.
Right. Well, yeah. But thanks very much for joining us, Jackson.
Yeah, of course. And obviously people can follow my socials, get Natural Jackson. I'm on every platform. That's the easiest way. And it's all, free educational stuff. And from there, you can find out what I'm doing. But yeah, it was really fun chatting with you guys. I appreciate the time. Yeah.
On Instagram, so I want to find out more.
Good.
Might have to
Good.
do some of these pelvic exercises.
Hey,
I have to get rid of my belly first. Jackson, thank you so much. Thank you.
take care.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode. Feel free to reach out to Volker or David via our website, www.manupdown.com or podcast@manupdown.com, with any feedback or to let us know what topics you'd like us to cover in the future. Hear you again soon.